My Staff connects the right people and the right companies. Fast, friendly, and focused on results. From temporary staffing to executive recruitment, the My Staff team knows Nebraska business and delivers a job done right. Accounting talent is tough to find, but not for Lisa Waite. She has the pulse on the talent pool and delivers results. Save time, skip the struggle, and let My Staff partner for success. Visit mystaff.com to learn more. Whatever your hiring need or career move, My Staff is your employment partner for a job done right. Visit mystaff.com or call 402-614-1441. Because at My Staff, we're not just recruiters, we're partners in your success story.
Here's to HR, the ones who know that the hardest part of HR isn't keeping secrets, it's carrying them.
Here's to HR, the ones who know when to share and when to say, sorry, that's confidential.
May our lips be sealed, except when there's a bottle of Chardonnay at the bar.
May we balance transparency with trust, tact, and truth.
The grapevine stops here. Cheers to
Cheers, HR. Today, we're going to be talking about one of the hardest parts of HR, which is knowing everything and being able to say almost nothing, right? We've all been there. We're digging into confidentiality, transparency, the fine line between being trusted and being tight-lipped. It's a really fine line and can be a very slippery slope in the HR space. And so let's face it, we know that everyone wants the inside scoop, and sometimes that includes our leadership team, and we still sometimes have to be very mindful of what we're sharing. So when you're the only one who knows the whole story, what you don't say matters just as much as what you do. So today we're going to talk about what off the record really means, how to keep trust when you can't share details, and why saying I can't tell you that doesn't have to sound like a power move. And then later in the sniff test today, we'll see how well our judgment holds up when the office grapevine starts swirling. So grab your glass, take a deep breath, and join us. We're spilling the wine, but not the tea. Oh, that's clever. I like that. So I'm Jamie Mohrman.
And I'm Amy Luckenbill. We are your hosts for the HR Wine Bar. Okay, so exploring HR's balance between openness and confidentiality, right? We're responsible for employee engagement. First of all, no, we're not. Everybody's responsible for employee engagement, but we are driving it, right? And so having personality and sharing and being congenial with people, right? That's part of our job at work, so that people have a connection with us and can trust us and can come to us when they're having problems and issues, right? The openness is part of our profession. And the flip side of that, the confidentiality is real, right? And where do we draw the line is situational, and it's not only what's legal, but it's also what you feel comfortable with, and balancing employee needs with employer responsibilities and sitting in that place of in between where in my witchy vibes we say the veil is thin, right? And that boundary we have to cross back and forth. It's October, so the witchy vibes are on, and so we have to negotiate that really carefully, right? Brene Brown I adore her. A lot of her research is based in shame, and she talks a lot about vulnerability as an avenue through which people can overcome shame and through which we can be connected. And she has a few videos about that openness piece, right? And so from the HR seat, I love her work and personally adore everything she has to say, but I kind of sit on the other side of that with the HRI and some little bit of cynicism that comes with age to go, social media, we can't do anything without being recorded. right?
Right.
If my high school and college days were recorded, this would be a problem. Our devices are listening to us all the time, everything bouncing all over, and I'm just a little bit more reticent to overshare at work in general as a person who's private.
Sure.
I'm also highly trusting, and I've been burned a couple times just giving trust to people about my own self and my personal, wants and needs and who I am. And had
Absolutely.
that come back in power plays against me. And so I'm kind of I skew to the side of privacy and confidentiality.
Absolutely.
Congenial, yes, but confidential. And so that's kind
Right.
of my take, and I'm always going to err on the side of confidential, in this conversation, I guess. Um,
Absolutely. There's
so
so
what are
much
your
at
thoughts,
stake.
Julie?
Yeah, I think there's so much at stake if we don't uphold that. I train on a topic and we talk about trust and how we define trust, and we call it the Power Five. So you use your hand as kind of the like visual for it. And the middle pillars are trust, respect, and credibility. I should have done that in a different order because trust is in the middle, and then we don't want to hold that one up alone. But trust, respect, and credibility, right? Those are the three pillars of any relationship that we have to have if it's going to be a solid relationship. And if we don't find credibility in someone, right, it's going to be harder to trust them. If we don't respect them, right, there's probably something that led us there, which we'll talk about with the other two fingers here, but it's going to be harder to trust them too. And so I always think about the other two, our pinky and our thumb here, are accountability and consistency. And without those two things, right, if we share information with one group, but then not somebody else, right, we're going to not be consistent and holding ourselves accountable to what we maybe said or should be doing, right? The expectation is. And that's going to decrease our credibility right out of the gate, which is going to erode trust, which once that's gone, it's going to be much harder to rebuild. And I think that goes for any relationship within your life, but especially in your HR role, that trust, if it's not there for employees to come to you, it's going to have significant impacts across the organization if they don't believe that that information will be kept uh, confidential and they haven't seen patterns of consistency and accountability in how you've handled other situations where people have come to you and how that information was either held or it was shared throughout the organization. So big impacts to relationship.
Absolutely, absolutely. I first of all, I love this, and I'm gonna recap. So trust in the middle,
Give you the
respect.
hand.
Yep, using the hand. I'm all about that.
Mhm.
Trust, respect, and credibility, accountability, and consistency. I love that. That's very well balanced and hits all the major points. And I think, in our culture today, there's a fine line between transparency, right, and too much information. And, when it comes to like, I want pay transparency in all of my employment situations. I philosophically, as HR, believe that that's fair for the entire workforce. But I don't necessarily want to know all the details about why in a salary band, this person's at the top of the salary band and this person's at the bottom of the salary band as a non-HR person.
Sure.
Right? That's just too much information. I want
Right.
to know that everyone in the organization is being compensated fairly and appropriately and that we don't have a gender pay gap,
Sure.
right? But I don't
Mhm.
wanna know the details, that's too much information.
Makes sense.
And so, I think that balance is we're struggling with that balance as a society, in addition to the conversation specific to human resources and what we do as a profession. You can't unpour information.
Yeah. Yep.
There are things that the wine metaphor, there are things that I know about people that I will never be able to unknow. I
Absolutely.
I did
Yes.
not ask
Living
for
rent
this
free
information.
in your head right now.
I have pictures in my head that I do not want in my head. So yeah, I think this is an important conversation that we need to have and that um there might be some misconceptions about HR specifically and why we're guarded. Again, employees think that we're here for the employer only, and employers are like, well, why can't I do that? Well, because it's illegal, and I'm here to protect the
Right.
employees. And we get it from both sides in keeping that balance. So
Yeah, that makes sense. And I think there's ways to, as we kind of talked about, establishing those relationships right out of the gate. When you're in an HR seat and it's kind of a lonely place. We talked about that in one of our previous episodes, right? You can't have the same level of relationships personally with employees that you may in a different role in a different department. And so I think establishing that kind of norm out of the gate with employees that, your role has expectations just like theirs, and it's a high level of confidentiality, and that you want to be able to apply that consistently across every relationship, because if it impacted them, they certainly would want you to be holding that information about them most likely confidential as well, even though they might be seeking information about someone else's situation. So it's kind of
right.
establishing those norms and the why behind it, honestly, to still have those really strong relationships with your people.
Yeah. So I think there are some kind of myths and mistakes that we can run
Yeah,
through to help folks understand like where that line sits, right?
100%.
Um, my favorite one is I told you that in confidence.
Ooh,
Well, right? Yeah, yes, you
mm,
did, but I could never
true.
guarantee confidentiality because I could be deposed at any time. And sorry, the court trumps your confidence, right? And so anytime
Right,
someone comes to me with an issue, I'm always sure to say, um, I can't guarantee this information won't be shared. Depending on what you have to tell me, there will be other parties involved, and I may have to act. And part of acting is sharing this information. But, but, I will do my best to be guarded in how I share that information,
right.
right? And that's all
That.
anybody can ask for. So,
Yes. Yeah, because there are situations where the information we learn can't be kept, confidential. We have to act. We have an obligation to act based on, whatever the,
mhm,
the situation might be, if it's to that level. So that's a great
yeah.
response. I love that.
What's interesting is that in my former life, my other life, as an educator, I became a mandatory reporter for child abuse,
Sure.
right? And so while it's unlikely that I would ever gather that type of information, it's possible that that
Right.
information could come to light for me in a situation that I'm overseeing it in
Right.
with employees, and I have to report. And
Yeah.
so that's something that I can never guarantee confidentiality on because I already have this mandatory reporting sitting from my teaching days that's not going away.
Absolutely. How
So
about when you had somebody whisper, "Oh, this is off the record"? Gotta love that one.
I yeah, yeah, this is off the record, but you should know that blankety blank, right? I can almost hear the sirens now when
Yes, it's actually
someone
this
wants
is
to tell
now
me
on
something.
the record, it sounds like.
Yeah, and I have actually stopped people and said, "Okay, hold. Nothing is off the record with me." Again, because depending on what you're about to tell me will determine the action that I need to take. And so, yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
off the record does not exist. I'm not a journalist.
No. Also, we talked
No.
about documentation, though, in our last episode, and the perception of us carrying around our little flip note book to be
Right,
a
right.
journalist, so to speak.
Entry
We are not that.
entry level number 1, this employee told me this on this date in my contemporaneous account. Like, you just told me something that puts me on notice that I need to go and investigate,
Right.
right? No,
Absolutely.
no. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Um, the I there's a quote that I love that is it's about the relationship between transparency and power.
Sure.
um trans Transparency is not the same as truth without context, right? And so when we're having these conversations, I'm like, I want the truth, yes, but I also need to add all the context. So when I get that, like, off the record, right, it
Right.
almost feels like this is an editorial of how I feel about this issue that I see over here, and I'm just telling you my editorial. Well, now, no, you've told me something that I now need context for in order to understand more and get to the truth. So I need the truth and I
Right.
need the context. I don't need your opinion about something, back to that documentation piece and investigations. Oh, it's so hard.
It is so hard. It is so hard. And I think there's, situations that aren't even always um employer relations based, right? That we have situations where we're part of a new initiative that the organization is working on, and there's an HR
Huh.
component to that and how it's going to impact employees and maybe the way that they're working or where they're working. Maybe we're doing an office remodel and we're going to be moving people around and departments are going to shift, or we're going to be getting a new software and it's going to change, how we've been doing things for the last 10 years. And, we as HR may be privy to that information way before any of those organizational changes would be cascaded out. And from time to time, people want information if they know something's coming, right? And that can also be a slippery slope because we want people to feel informed. We want them to have information, to feel like they know what's going to impact them or how they work on a day-to-day basis. And likely it might be a very good change that's coming their way, but we may not have enough information to provide an accurate depiction of what that's going to look like. And so finding ways to offer, I can't share all of this now, but know as soon as we've worked through all the details, that we will be sharing or coming up with kind of a timeline that you are able to share more details if you're going through some sort of significant, organizational change, because people want information, and makes sense, right? We all want to know how something might impact us. So finding ways to even navigate communication through organizational changes when maybe we don't even have all the information yet. And it's okay to say that. And that, until we have kind of fully baked all of the pieces, we don't want to prematurely share something that might inevitably change before it gets to the final rollout.
Yeah, I have two thoughts around that
Okay.
spectacular
Yeah.
examples that you've given. The first one
Sure.
is that that's a to me, that's a fear response. Like, one, I need more information, like being on
Right.
alert and something is coming and I'm an over preparer and an
Right.
overthinker and a futurist. So I'm going, well, if this happens, I go here, and if this happens, I go here, and if this happens, I go there, right? And so I want to prepare
Right.
for all of the contingency plans, because if I have a plan, then I can't be hurt, right? And
Mhm.
I'm outing myself in my control
Right.
nature. And I want as much data as I can because I'm Clifton Strengths number one in input. I want as much data as I can so that I can prepare.
Yes.
And so I would be the first one at your door going, I need I need more
Sure.
information about this move. And isn't it amazing how upset people get about the prospect of moving to a different office? They're very
Yes.
controlling about their space.
Very,
Um, but
yes. Mhm.
but the fear response is real. And really all I need is a reassurance for someone to say, um, what's your concern? I want to hear your
Yes.
concern. I don't have the information, but what's your concern? And I can say, well, I have, this is true. I have a hearing impairment. I wear hearing aids, and I want to make sure that wherever I am in the office, as an example, that my hearing is not affected, that I'm not too close to
Sure.
the conference room because there's usually a lot of noise, that I'm near the phone if I'm responsible for answering it as a backup, that I can hear it and know that I need to dial in and,
Yeah.
and answer,
That
those
makes sense.
types of things. And to have someone hear me and say, "You know what? Thank you for sharing that. I'm gonna make sure that the people who are making the decisions have that information,
Yes.
right? And then I'm good.
Yep.
Right? And
Yes.
that's not a real example, but those are the types of things that I think about when an employee starts getting dysregulated and wanting more
Yes.
information. All they want is to be heard and to know that you're going to take that information and pass it on to the decision makers. Right? They
Right.
just want their
Because
input.
your concerns are valid,
Um,
your perspective's valid, right? We wanna validate that, and to your point, we're going to
yeah.
take that feedback and share it, and we'll use that as we get to that next, step, and I love that because
Yeah.
you're giving them the space to express and, validate their fear or concern.
And the other piece of that is that the employees who are asking for information are the ones who are still invested.
Right.
They wanna know for the future. In my mind, someone who is like, "Meh, I don't need that
Yeah.
information." They have disconnected and they're out. So, as much as some people are like, "Gosh, I wish they'd stop asking me questions about this thing. It's coming, it's coming. Everybody calm down." I understand that frustration, but those people that are asking you for more are the ones who are still doing the work, who are still engaged, who are still, vested in the greater interest of the business.
Right.
Right? And you need to address those things. So,
Mhm.
just a couple it's a great example, Jamie, I appreciate that. So,
Yeah.
do you have any more to offer us about, when someone does want more information and you can't say something? Do you have I love a good script. Anytime someone's like, "Well, I'm dealing with this." I'm like, "Well, have you tried let me give you a script, and if it works for you, use it." So do you have any scripts
Right.
for us about things we
Hmm.
can say when we can't say too much?
Right. Well, I honestly really loved what you said. I think it's so important that, if somebody comes to you and they say, I have this concern and I heard that this is happening and I need information, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not, right? That you took a minute there to truly say, hey, I hear you. That sounds very frustrating, or it sounds like that would be a fear, if it was something that I had heard too. So let's talk about it a little further. Tell me more about maybe what they've heard, or what the perspective is. So tell me more about that and what your biggest concern is. If it's something that's impacting like their day to day work, or if it's something that's impacting a relationship, really trying to understand where the concern lies. And then from there, you may be able to take different action steps before you could even provide other information, right? If you learn in that conversation that this employee is having some sort of relationship problem with someone and they've heard, some information or some gossip potentially too, right? You might be able to uncover a really objective opportunity to say, hey, that does sound concerning. It does sound like on a day to day basis, you're having X, Y, and Z concern with this employee. Let's dig into that a little more. And, from what I can provide you today, let's see if we can maybe make a little bit of progress on working through that situation. Maybe you're not redirecting from their original question, but maybe you'll uncover something in the midst of that conversation that does provide an actionable item or some sort of insight for them in that moment. But if it's truly something that, it's a organizational change coming, to your point, validating that concern, asking what the concern is, letting them know that you're going to be escalating that to the team so that they're aware, but also then maybe providing timelines as things do become available, and some sort of playbook of what is coming next. If we are going to roll out a new
Yeah.
software, maybe it's the announcement that this is coming and here's the why we're
Yep.
doing this. We don't have all the logistics worked out of exactly the date that this is going to be happening, but as soon as we do, we will be letting you know. We've put this, task force together, or this group that's going to be helping us with the rollout, and these are going to be your people that are your go-tos, and just giving as much information as you can in some of those bite-sized pieces. Because the other thing that can happen is an overwhelm of information tell everything if it is an organizational change
right?
everything at one time. Here's the change. Here's why it's happening. Here's what's it's gonna look like. And then we leave the room and everyone's like,
Right.
what just happened? So finding ways to kind of give that in bite-sized pieces that are relevant
Yeah.
for where you're at in the process and gathering feedback from employees kind of throughout each phase so you can be prepared for that next moment you're going to come back and have a touch point on kind of what's next. And maybe there's things that you just truly have to, again, say, based on the nature of this situation in my role, I am not able to provide any more information, about this. And we would hold the same confidentiality for you as an employee if this was impacting you. If you have any other questions, you certainly can, reach out to whoever that next level is within the organization. But you may just have to be firm in that I can't provide anything else. And I know that might be
No.
disappointing, but we would hold the same confidentiality for you.
This is outside the scope of HR confidentiality, but specifically when you have teams guiding change and those types of things, it's really important that your messaging is consistent from everyone who is in the know. Um,
Yes.
mm, you can get yourself in a lot of trouble if someone is telling one story and you're holding the confidentiality piece, but someone else is over just sharing all the things, right? Everybody
Yes.
needs to be on the same page in leading that kind of conversation. So again, we're back to manager training.
100%. Always, right?
100%.
And alignment, right? You want everybody going in a consistent direction.
Yeah. Okay. So I think it's time for a break before we refill our glasses and talk about how to keep your mouth shut without sounding shady. Let's take a break for a message from our sponsor. Please remember that the folks that sponsor us are the ones who make HR Wine Bar happen. So please be kind and don't fast forward. Just let it breathe. And when we come back, I'm gonna share a cautionary tale. So we'll be back in a moment.
My Staff connects the right people and the right companies. Fast, friendly, and focused on results. From temporary staffing to executive recruitment, the My Staff team knows Nebraska business and delivers a job done right. If you've got a big project coming up, don't stress your team. Call Virginia Frazee at My Staff. Omaha businesses trust Virginia to find the right temporary, permanent, and legal talent fast. For skilled corporate support that delivers results, call 402-614-1441. Whatever your hiring need or career move, My Staff is your employment partner for a job done right. Visit mystaff.com or call 402-614-1441. Because at My Staff, we're not just recruiters, we're partners in your success story.
All right, well, we're back from our short little wine break here, and we're going to talk about just a little bit of a sniff test. We've been talking about maybe some responses, ways you can navigate some of these tougher situations when you're asked kind of the impossible questions at times. And, as a kind of a little interactive piece we've been doing in all of our sessions, I guess, is this sniff test time. So we should have game show music that starts or something during our sniff
We
test moment
we
of
totally
the
should.
episode. Note that for
I
next
think we
time.
should
Um,
I think we should call the game show Grape Expectations.
ooh, and then we could maybe have some call-ins. That'd be great. Wouldn't that be
There
fun?
you
We have
go.
some call-ins
There
on
you
deck.
go.
Phone a friend.
So
Which, you know what? That can sometimes be the answer. And we talked about that in previous episodes too. If you were like, I need a sniff test for myself, like I've never dealt with this situation and I don't know, like what have other people done when this has occurred? You've got your HR friends and partners, and sometimes it's helpful to run scenarios by and get another set of eyes and wisdom on those situations. So in our sniff
that's
test today, a couple of those scenarios that you might encounter is an employee coming in and asking for details about another employee's discipline. And this is a bit redundant potentially, from what we talked about earlier, but it really is a case where, just like we talked in our hand, right, our Power Five, that if we want to maintain that credibility and trust, it's not going to do us any favors. Even if this employee who comes in is somebody we really like and we feel like we might trust them, it's not going to do us any favors to provide even a little bit of information or give leading information to that person, because it's not going to hold us accountable or consistent in what we should be doing in our role. So really just letting that employee know that, hey, unfortunately, I'm not able to share those details. And again, like I said earlier, reminding of, if it were you in the situation, we would uphold that same confidentiality and we want to protect that employee as well. So always something to kind of just remind on. Scenario 2 would be a manager comes in who's maybe received a complaint and says, well, just tell me who complained. And maybe based on the situation, we talked about some of those stickier situations, maybe where that employee has asked for confidentiality. And there might be times where we as HR professionals are obligated to investigate at a different level. And so we might be in, a stickier situation where we're in the middle of working through something a little bit heavier and escalated. So I think, again, reminding that employee that, from this standpoint, we want to ensure that anonymity and protect that employee from any potential retaliation or other concerns that might come from this while we're still working through it. I think that's always a valid piece. And then kind of a third one, again, it's your leadership team sometimes maybe demanding transparency because they see you on a peer level with them and feel that there maybe is a level of transparency because of that, or what's the word I'm looking for? Some level that they should be able to get that information. And so they're demanding transparency on a pending issue. And I think your response is, the same. Until we've fully had time to work through all the pieces, there isn't any other information I can provide at this time. And as soon as there is a next step or something else to share, I'll be sure to do so. But just reminding them that, it's not something that you can do in that moment. So if it smells off, don't serve it. That's our wine tip of the day for you in our sniff test.
Yeah, this bottle is way too old. I'm thinking specifically on your last example about leadership wanting more information. I'm thinking specifically about something which for us is as simple as FMLA, right? And this employee has been approved for FMLA, and they're going to be out from this date to this date, and they're upset because they have to rework their staff, etc. And they want more information. Well, what's wrong with them? Well, that's protected information, and we're not going to share any kind of diagnoses or treatment information with you. Just know that they've been approved, and well, they can't be gone for that. No, that's not your decision to make. This is a federally guaranteed leave. They have been approved, and that's all the information you need. And in addition to that, don't contact them while they're on leave. Do not. We
Yes,
could be
another good
sued for that.
reminder.
Do not be reaching out. What's the password to your computer? Nope. It's our job to go and do the work in their absence and to let them
Yes,
be on leave and
recover
heal.
and deal with, yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's specifically one I've dealt with in the past that
That's a
leaders
good one.
and owners specifically think that they deserve to know that information. No, you do not.
Yes,
So, yeah, it
absolutely.
smells
Great
off.
example. It smells a little bit off.
Yeah, I'm thinking, Jamie, in this conversation, how our owners and leaders are looking to us to model the appropriate level of transparency in all of these situations, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I had promised our guests a cautionary tale. I have in the past had someone who worked for me who had struck up a friendship with an employee in the company, and the relationship just started to get a little too close in my mind. And I kind of warned this employee and said, hey, just remember, you're HR. And if you have some things that you're dealing with at work, or you need to vent, you come to me. Right?
Right.
You don't have the luxury being in HR of complaining outside of the HR department.
Right.
Right? We're modeling that. And the friendship had grown to a point that I had to address it in a second instance after that. Hey, be very careful of this. Warned in the beginning at hire, and then a second talk, and now into the third conversation, having a conversation with the other employee, not in HR. And the quote that she said, well, she just needed to vent. Well, no, HR is held to a different standard, right?
Yes.
And the specific tell was, if you need to vent, you come to me.
Right.
And you can do that all you want. This is a safe place. You're allowed to be frustrated at work. And even if you're frustrated with me, you're allowed to be frustrated, or I
Right.
can escalate to my boss. But it became such a situation that I had to say it's either the friendship or the job, right?
Right.
Because HR is held to a higher
That's
standard
tough.
to model these behaviors of what's appropriate at work.
Yep.
And so the leaders are watching how HR handles information. We're
For sure.
setting the tone where, as we have said in previous episodes, we are the adultier adult in the room. And this
So true.
particular scenario was not being the adultier adult, right? So
Yeah.
that's a struggle and a cautionary tale just for all of HR. Make sure you know, again, previous episode, make sure you know who your professional circle of trust, know who those folks are, and go to those people, the trustworthy places that you can go for a sniff test, that you can go to vent, that you can go to get some emotional support for what you're going through, from other folks who know. That's really important, because everybody is looking at HR for what's appropriate. So, yeah.
Absolutely. That's great advice.
Yeah. So I think we might have exhausted the topic, Jamie. There's always
So
going to be
too.
something else. Yeah,
Yeah.
always.
I think
But
you've hopefully given a good kind of baseline of some things to think about in terms of responses and what to do when these situations inevitably are going to arise.
inevitably, and we're looking for the sweet spot, right? We want the appropriate level of transparency with compliance, with structure around how we're communicating things, and building your, can you give us your Power 5 again?
Power 5.
Building
Yeah.
Power 5. Yeah.
So we've got trust, respect, credibility, and then the catalysts of accountability and consistency.
Fantastic. I think that is a great recap for us for today. So here we are on our final pour. Here's to HR, the ones who keep the company honest and the gossip contained.
Here's to HR, the one who know where the skeletons are buried, but still come back the next day.
May we keep the calm in times of chaos.
And may we keep pouring truth, not tea.
Cheers to HR.
My Staff connects the right people and the right companies, fast, friendly, and focused on results. From temporary staffing to executive recruitment, the My Staff team knows Nebraska business and delivers a job done right. Looking for your next HR role in Nebraska, Iowa, Colorado, or South Dakota? Everyone knows Kim Lynch at My Staff because she connects great people with great careers. Let Kim help you land your next HR dream job. Email Kim at mystaff.com. Whatever your hiring need or career move, My Staff is your employment partner for a job done right. Visit mystaff.com or call 402-614-1441. Because at My Staff, we're not just recruiters, we're partners in your success story.
HR